Today's video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Now, you probably already know what a VPN is if you're using the internet, or at least you should, because it's an amazing tool to not only protect your data, but access parts of the internet you might not already be able to get to. VPNs can basically be used to protect your online identity and hide the source of your information. This means on one hand that you could stay safe on public Wi-Fi, but also that you can get access to videos or media that would otherwise be region locked. For example, you can access Canadian Netflix from America. Right now, you can use code EckhartsLadder to get 83% off Surfshark VPN plus an extra 3 months for free. Surfshark also offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's absolutely no risk to trying it out for yourself. Links, of course, are down in the description. Thank you so much to Surfshark for sponsoring today's video and supporting the channel. Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars video. And today's topic is actually a positive one because we're discussing some pretty cool news regarding some fan favorite Star Wars Legends characters. So yesterday, StarWars.com put out a new article called Fan Favorites from Classic Star Wars Stories Come to Hasbro's Black Series. And it's just like the name says, some favorite Star Wars Legends characters will be getting exclusive new Black Series figures. And this is positive generally because any acknowledgement of Star Wars Legends is, I think, a good thing. However, it's not without a catch. So I'm going to give some backstory, then we'll look at the characters, I'll talk about the catch. If you want to skip through various parts, I've included timestamps below. But basically, the article starts with Jennifer Heddle, who's an executive editor at Lucasfilm Publishing, explaining why Star Wars comics and novels were important to her. And this is something that I think is important, I want to point out, because she says, and I quote, "Seeing these figures, the ones that we'll be talking about today, takes me right back to memories of sitting on my bedroom floor, paging through the latest Star Wars comic, hardly able to believe I was reading original adventures about my favorite characters." And I think that's something a lot of especially older Star Wars Legends fans can really relate to. For me, I think of Heir to the Empire and Knights of the Old Republic specifically. Both of those stories felt like the Star Wars universe brought to a new medium more than anything else that existed at that time. The article continues saying that the 4 characters chosen, including Luke Skywalker from Star Wars Heir to the Empire, Jackson from the 1970s Marvel's Star Wars run, Darth Maul from Star Wars Darth Maul the comics, and Carnor Jax from Crimson Empire, although we'll have to come back and talk about him. Hey guys, just popping in while editing this video with some updates. The StarWars.com article has been updated to reflect a mistake in the packaging and general design of the character included here. This is something I was going to point out later, but essentially this is not actually Carnor Jax, it's Canos, another character from Star Wars Crimson Empire. I'm going to come back and talk about that later on in the video. If you're confused, don't worry. The article continues by saying that the 4 characters were chosen based on fan appeal and because they show the tremendous range and potential of the publishing program by representing comics and novels. Alright, so there's good and bad here. I mean, my favorite character of the bunch is easily Heir to the Empire Luke Skywalker. We've got Luke sort of reflecting his Heir to the Empire comic outfit. He doesn't have the massive blue Claymore lightsaber that he has in that comic issue for some reason, but he does have a sort of new outfit. He's got his green lightsaber, and of course he has his Asalamiri, which are the force-repelling creatures that feature very heavily in the Thrawn Trilogy. I really love this character. I don't collect figures at all. I don't own a single one, but this is one I'm actually going to consider picking up. The cool thing is, this is, to my knowledge, the only post-Return of the Jedi Luke action figure that actually exists. And I mean, the Thrawn Trilogy and Heir to the Empire needs to be recognized in something like this if we're going to celebrate Lucasfilm Publishing, because Heir to the Empire revived Star Wars and is arguably the most popular and important Star Wars book of all time. Alright, so next we have Jackson, and this is where I start to get a little meh about some of the choices here. Basically, they had 4 slots for important Star Wars characters, and I'm a little bit frustrated they chose Jackson. For those who don't know, Jackson was a character in the classic Star Wars Marvel comics and has actually made his way to new canon. He's not the biggest character in the comics. He features in a sort of handful of issues, and to be honest, he's being included here because Jackson has sort of evolved into a meme that is sometimes used to sort of point and laugh at how silly the Star Wars Expanded Universe was. He's also sometimes used harmlessly as a sort of kitschy icon of that era era of sillier Star Wars stuff because the Marvel comics are pretty silly. The thing is, everyone knows Jackson. Jackson gets a ton of references already, but he doesn't well represent the very important legacy of those Star Wars comics. So I'm a big fan of the Star Wars Marvel run. There were 108 issues, including the one that released last year, but of course the real run was 107. It ran from 77 to 87, and sometimes the comics were adaptations of the movies, but they also told their own new stories, which were a lot of fun. I first read them as a kid. My uncle had them alongside Spider-Man and X-Men comics, but I read them all a couple of years ago online, and I think it's a shame that that era doesn't get more sort of recognition alongside the Russ Manning comics, because they're a really important part of Star Wars history, and there are a lot of iconic characters which they could have used for a figure that I think would have better represented what actual fans of that era and of those comics really liked and were drawn to, and things that were important parts of the stories. For example, we had Valance the Hunter brought into Star Wars canon. He would have been a great addition. I would have liked to see Lumaya, who was sort of like a lady Darth Vader and who would reappear in Legacy of the Force much later on in Star Wars Legends. And to be clear, I've got nothing against Jackson. He's a fine character. I don't mind that he's a bunny rabbit. Silly characters in Star Wars, at least silly looking Star Wars characters, because he is actually quite violent in the comics, are fine, but he's overrepresented, and that's kind of because people sort of see him as a meme. But anyway, the third character is Darth Maul, and Darth Maul is different in Star Wars Legends because he doesn't have like a clear ending point because Star Wars Rebels didn't exist. There are some cool stories in comics, but I mean, ultimately to me, it's just another Darth Maul figure. I'm not in love with the character anyway, so I'm gonna move on and talk about maybe the second most interesting pick of the bunch, Carnor Jax. Okay, so I'm going to jump in here, and I've got to re-record all of this because there's sort of an interesting issue here. The StarWars.com article and the packaging for this figure originally listed this as Carnor Jax. Carnor Jax is the villain of Crimson Empire 1, a pretty popular comic book series. He was a former Imperial Guard who rose to power as like a wannabe Sith Lord. He assassinated all of the remaining Imperial Guards after Palpatine's Dark Empire death, then faced off against the remaining guard who survived the assassination attempt, Kirk Canos, in an epic duel that many Legends fans are a big fan of. The problem is, although this packaging calls this Carnor Jax, it's not. It's Kirk Canos. Kirk Canos, the protagonist of the series. He's kind of a bad guy too, at least in Crimson Empire 1. But I'm not going to talk too much about the story. We covered it on Tapcaf Transmissions a couple of weeks ago, all 3 arcs of Crimson Empire. But yeah, it's Kirk Canos, not Carnor Jax. This has been fixed now in the Star Wars article. It seems like it's been acknowledged. There's a little note at the bottom of the article now which points out that the packaging is mislabeled. Not a huge deal, but it does kind of point to me that maybe there's not as much thought going into this as we'd like. It also is sort of an updated version of an existing figure, but I will say, even though I don't like Crimson Empire as much as some other people, this is a nice figure. They cover the comic book covers especially, which show Kirk Canos with a purple cape. Of course, he's got his double-sided blade and his cool armor, so I'm a fan of this one, especially now that the error has been fixed. Anyway, the article ends with, while this wave is definitely a surprise, it was actually something of a no-brainer. At its core, Star Wars is all about amazing storytelling, and throughout the history of the company, some of the most imaginative and exciting stories have come from our publishing program, and yeah, I agree. We couldn't celebrate the first 50 years of the company without acknowledging some of the great characters and stories that have come from our novels and comic series throughout the years. And I mean, that's a really great point. Star Wars, for a long time, has been carried by the expanded universe, especially in the eras where no movies were coming out, or after the prequels when we thought Star Wars movies were done. I do think this is, though, a bit of a token appreciation. Like, there's more that Star Wars Legends fans would go for. There are still so many characters who've never been appropriately recognized outside of their source material. Jacen Solo, for example, is one of the most important characters in the New Jedi Order and beyond, and outside of the books, he gets nothing. There's no Jacen Solo figurine, despite him being arguably one of the most important characters in that late Legends era. I also think the Darth Maul pick is a little bit wasted. I mean, there's already 100 Darth Maul statues and whatever else for fans of the characters. I don't think this is adding a whole lot else. I would have loved to see a Kyle Katarn. Maybe that's not possible because he's primarily a video game character, although he does appear in comics and books. But I do think, like, aside from a Jason or a Kyle, someone like a Talon Card or a Grand Admiral Thrawn or a Mara Jade would have maybe been a more interesting choice. I think would have better reflected what Star Wars fans are looking for than at least the Jackson and Darth Maul picks. That's why I do feel like this is a bit of just picking this because there's a moment rather than kind of a genuine chance or a genuine attempt to appease Legends fans. That being said, it is nice to see Star Wars Legends reference, and I do think overall this is a good moment for Star Wars. I do hope Star Wars continues to reference and recognize its history and the things that fans love that are no longer being continued. I mean, I posted on Twitter about how Fate of the Jedi, which was the last full book series in the Star Wars Legends continuity, had like 100 loose ends and exciting characters and planned sequels that we're never going to see. I mean, even just getting art for some of those characters would be nice. But guys, that's all I have for today. Until next time, let me know what you think. Be safe, and may the Force be with you.